Hello, welcome to my first Instagram Live. I'm going to host Mel, BreathGal, and we're going to talk about how to use breath to de-stress, which is a really important tool in our midlife kit. So I can see that BreathGal has joined. Mel, could you request to join the live feed so I can give you access and we can, perfect. I've accepted Mel's kind offer to join us. So hopefully she's going to pop up any second now. Oh, there you are.
There I am. No forehead.
Yeah. Oh, and yeah, I think you've got, well, I've got plenty of forehead to share.
We'll share your forehead. Excellent.
So, welcome. It is so nice to see you, and I'm really excited to talk to you about how to use your wonderful breath work to help us de-stress, which is quite frankly the holy grail of midlife. I've asked you to speak today in particular because I'm doing a really long series on digestion and how to support an efficient, comfortable digestion. Because over the summer, so many of my followers contacted me saying, something's not quite working for me. Can you do more on digestion? And I know that you do a lot of work in relation to supporting your clients make that switch from fight or flight to rest, digest, restore. The clue is kind of in that phrase that in order to digest really comfortably, you need to be relaxed.
Yes.
And in my opinion, a wonderful way to do that is to use some breath work.
Yes.
So that's sort of the context for today. But shall we start by you just introducing yourself to everybody?
Yeah, that'd be lovely. So hi everybody. If you didn't know, I'm Mel. But yes, usually BreathGal these days. I was like, yes, I am Mel. I have got a name. I've merged. But yes, I do I teach lots of different types of breath work, actually. My passion, I think, is a type of breath work that's like a really deep, kind of emotional releasing breath work, which is my passion because I think it's the most powerful breath work there is out there. And it's how I first came to breath work, actually, when I discovered this one. But since then, I have then trained in other breathworks and just recently finished a long COVID course, actually, which has been really fascinating to learn about how it can be helped. And obviously, we're in the early days of treating, people that have got long COVID. So that's quite a journey. But yeah, I've just done that. But yes, I also, teach lots of pranayama breath work and lots of breath work that, just like you said, that can literally just change your state in minutes. And I think that's why I love breath work so much, because literally it's accessible to everyone. And I'm really passionate about that. It's not just, people that are in the wellness industry. It's accessible to everybody, every age. My clients vary, from younger children all the way through to elderly people, because it's so accessible. We're all connected by our breath. Each of us, even though we've never met, we've breathed the same air at some point. The breath, it's just, we're connected by it. It's easily accessible. Yeah, really passionate about it. I also work for, I'm part of a team called School Breathe, which I'm really passionate about. And we're just getting teaching teachers and teaching children. So we have kind of two different arms just to get breathwork in schools, because again, I feel really passionate that, if we learn these techniques, when we go to school, we will be armed with these techniques as one of the tools that we need to access, when we come across stress in later life. And then we can access, breath, really easy one to do that no one even notices that we're doing, like if we were in the classroom or we were at work or whatever we were doing, and then we can help ourselves, and I was reading this great analogy about stress the other day that I wanted to share because I think it's great. And it's like, if you see stress as like a big water butt. So you have this big water butt that you're carrying around, and all the stresses, and that can be, you know, trauma or lack of sleep, bad digestion, family troubles, you know, whatever it is. And the water butt is filling and filling and filling. And if we don't have any tools, this water butt then overflows, and the water butt overflows, and then we have physical, emotional problems then can start occurring and really start, you know, affecting our lives. And at that point, often we get the body says no, right? It's like, no, I've got to now do something about this. But if, like I was just saying about the school, if we're taught at school level, learn to use and access the power of our breath, amongst other things, because, you know, there's plenty of tools that we can use, that, you know, this water butt, when we are filling and filling and filling, you know, just daily life, if we have a tap and we turn that tap and we regulate ourselves, regulate our nervous system by doing breath work, meditation, good diet, exercise, yoga, all of these things, and we keep turning that tap, that water butt, and then the water butt comes down, you know, and then all the stresses and things kind of add in, but we keep accessing that tap, keep accessing all of those tools that we have in our kit, and then we have, and that burden we can then carry around on day to day. And but obviously the problem is, a lot of us, you know, we don't have access to the tools, or we haven't been taught them, and that water butt feels and then overflows, you know. So I wanted to share that analogy because I just think it's a really great one, actually, really accessible for people to understand.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes I talk about doing a plait. So you've got all the different strands in your plait. You get your sleep right, you get your diet right, you get your exercise right, and then you've got your stress busting techniques, one of which, a really important one, is just how to use your breath. One of the things that sometimes my clients say, I sort of say, no, do you do breath work? And they go, oh, no. No, I wouldn't be able to do it. My mind would wander, or I'd find it boring, or no, that just doesn't appeal. And I always kind of say, look, have a go to BreathGal on her Instagram, have a look at her Friday Night and Boogie and watch one, and then tell me that A, does it make you smile, and B, does it make you want to join in? And you know, I'm often talking about finding different sources of joy, as well as finding different ways to manage your stress and different coping strategies. And I think that you sort of combine all of those, you're joyful and you're stress busting, and it's accessible. As you say, we all have to breathe, and we're sharing the same air, and just simple techniques that we've got sort of lodged in our brain that we can call upon in times of need. Absolutely essential, particularly, you know, post-COVID, in this kind of crazy world that we're inhabiting at the moment. So could you give us an example of what we might do? I don't know, if we've got 1 or 2 minutes, because I think part of the problem as well is people go, oh, I don't have time for that. So can we,
which is it's a real peeve of mine, but only because I'm so passionate about it, because it's for me it's so essential, you know, to just daily maintenance of that, you know, like that water butt I was talking about. And I'm really passionate about anchoring breathing techniques. So a lot of the time, you know, I'll say to client, you know, do you drive anywhere? Do you walk anywhere? You know, it's, you know, do you watch television? You know, there's so many things that you can do, breathing exercises, whilst you're doing these. And if you can anchor, you know, an exercise to something that you do on a daily basis, you know, then there's no excuse for like there's no time. Like, and I know what it's like. I know we live in this, you know, really busy, you know, is sort of stress-filled world, but because of that, even more so, we need to be doing it, you know. And there's certain type of breathing techniques that, you do need to be laid down, and you do need to be really careful, because you can get really sleepy. But there's so many accessible breathing techniques that you can do, you know, when you are walking and when you are driving. And also, I think a lot of people think, you know, breath work is just a relaxation. But actually, I like to say the breath work is like a Swiss Army knife, because there is a different breathing technique for anything, you know, literally anything. So if you wake up in the morning and funnily enough, I've had some sleep issues really recently. So I've really had to put the breath through the test in the middle of the night recently. And I've been doing so many different techniques that have been amazing and really relaxed me. And although sometimes I haven't fallen asleep, what has worked is that I've just felt really, really calm, you know, and laid there just feeling really super calm and not feeling like anxious about it. I've lost my train of thought now. That's another thing that keeps happening. I think I'm in that time of stress. Anyway, yeah, sorry, that was it. So anchoring your practice, doing things that you can do on a daily basis, and they can be really easy and really simple. Now, the different types of breathing technique, as I was saying, so stress, for anxiety, for sleep, for energizing. So when you wake up in the morning, there's plenty of breath work that you can do that you're not accessing caffeine that might, you know, really stimulate you, and then you really fall flat. And also, particularly in the afternoon as well, if you're reaching for caffeine, and that does affect your sleep. And actually, you don't need to do that. You can access some breathing techniques that will really, really help with that. So yes, with breathwork for stress, there's a lot of exercises for that. And what happens is when we inhale, that actually increases our heart rate. And when we're inhaling, we're accessing part of the nervous system that is that fight and flight or freeze. And when we're exhaling, we're accessing the really calming, that rest and digest part of our nervous system. So relaxation techniques, you know, for stress, what they tend to do is have a longer exhale. And the reason they do that is we are accessing that really calm part of our nervous system. So then our heart rate slows down, our breath slows down, and we have that loop, you know, from our gut as well, you know, to our brain, and it's constantly talking to each other. So by calming our heart, calming our breath, we're sending that message to the brain. It's like, oh no, you know, everything's fine. And then that message then goes back and it keeps looping back. And that really links also to the gut, in that if you perhaps something, you know, coming up at work that makes you feel nervous, but you may not have thought about it consciously, but you go running to the toilet. And that is linked, because if you're feeling stressed, you know, your gut is feeling stressed, because all of those nerves are all connected, and it's telling your gut that it's really nervous, and then you can get a really nervous tummy, really nervous bowel, and then that loops back up to the brain, you know. And you can hack your system by doing some relaxation techniques. I think probably one of my favorite ones, because it's quite an easy one, is a lovely inhale through the nose for the count of 4, and exhale for the count of 6, as we're extending the exhale, we're calming our system. And then we hold the breath just for 2 seconds at the bottom, just to really extend and really access the part of that calming of our nervous system. And you can repeat that 10 times or until you feel calmer. I always like to say 10, because for me personally, I found that until I've done 10 rounds of something, I'm kind of in the swing of it. And then I start noticing that it's made a difference to my body and then how I feel.
Okay, so that's 4 in through the nose, 6 out through the mouth. And then,
well, you can do actually, but through the nose, especially when you're, I think when you're out in public, I think it's really good just to stick to the nose for lots of reasons. You know, we should be breathing through our nose on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, through the nose, I would say, if you're out and about. But
and then what did you say? What was the third thing? So the 4 in through the nose, 6 out, and then hold. Did you say hold?
Yes, and then hold your exhale. So hold at the bottom of your exhale just for 2 seconds. So very just light exhale, and then hold it just for a couple of seconds before you then inhale again for the count of 4.
Okay. So if we're looking for something quick to facilitate that switch from whatever's triggered you before your lunch, to your rest, digest, restore state, that is a really quick, discreet thing to do, no matter where you are, and no matter what your time pressures, you're going to be able to fit that in. So that's really great.
And also, just on that note, because it's a nice relaxation exercise, but I think it's worth saying that you know, when we are feeling stressed, we might need to. So we might be that we have to do a presentation, or you know, we have to do something that requires us to be in that stressful state. And actually, you know, there's a lot of kind of bad talk about being in that stress part of our nervous system, but we actually, every sort of 90 minutes or so, we do swing between our calm state, you know, and our active state, and it's really normal to go flow between those, because we do need to access that. So I just wanted to say that, and it's perfectly okay. It's only when we get stuck in that fight or flight or freeze state, you know, or we don't like it, we don't need it, like we're trying to fall asleep, for example, you know, and that's when we can do one of those relaxation exercises. But what I wanted to say is that a lot of you know, the police, Navy SEALs, a lot of people that have quite high stressful jobs, the common technique that they go to and they are actually taught is box breathing, which I will explain for anybody watching. But box breathing is one of those exercises that if you are in a stressed state but you still need to be focused, then this exercise is one that you would do, because it just brings you back to a nice level standard. So if you're feeling too active, it calms you, and if you're feeling almost too relaxed, it kind of brings you up again. So it kind of levels your breathing out. Yes, hooray for box breathing. It is. It's a brilliant go-to. You know, the armed forces are taught it because it keeps that level of focus, but also keeps you really calm. So you know, I really wanted to mention that if you are feeling stressed but you still need to be on it and focused, then box breathing is the way to go. So I'll just explain the technique, and if you just imagine a box as well, it's quite easy. And the counts are the count to the 4, which I think is kind of nice for you to remember too. So you start by inhaling for the count of 4, and then you hold your breath on that inhale for the count of 4. Then you exhale for the count of 4. Hold your breath at the bottom of that exhale for the count of 4, and then you start again.
Nice.
So really simple, really nice, and I really like it actually. I think a lot of businessmen and women use it as well before they're going on stage or to do a talk or a presentation, because it calms you and keeps you really focused.
It kind of levels you off, kind of, so you're sufficiently focused to do a good job, but you're not hyper. Your emotions are not super stressful. Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
One of my followers asked a question about what deep breathing does, and she said 7-11. As an example. So could you just speak to that a little?
Yeah, of course. 7-11 is kind of was given that tag name to that exercise because it's like an American I think supermarket or something like that. It's 7-11. So it was kind of like an easy thing to remember, the 7-11 technique. Really fundamentally, 7-11 is almost the same as what we described a minute ago, the 4-6. All we're accessing there is just a longer exhale. Now, I think 7-11, for someone that's not done any type of breath work before, potentially will find that a bit too tricky. And once you've done a lot of breath work and you're doing it on a daily basis, and by the way, you only have to do a few minutes a day for it to make a difference. You know, you don't have to do it for an hour a day, you know, literally 5-10 minutes a day, and kind of build up, you know, throughout the day. But yeah, 7-11 is just a lovely deep inhale, which is great, because inhaling for 7, you have got to really focus on breathing into your belly, breathing into your midsection, breathing into your chest to be able to inhale for 7. And then a nice long exhale. Again, you're just accessing that part of your nervous system that's just really calming you down. And that's what the long 11 is. A lot of my clients can't access 7-11 initially. So I would start them at 4-6, or even when I have younger children or elderly, we'll go even further back and keep it short. So yeah, kind of that's what 7-11 is. And also, I think it's really important to say, with all of the breathing exercises, we really need to be focusing on using our diaphragm. And I think a lot of people have lost the ability to kind of feel that. So we could just do that now with everybody. And what I'd like everyone to do is just get their hands, and if you can just pop it either side of your rib cage and your lower rib cage. It's kind of got almost awkward position actually to hold it there. But if you can just put your hands there, and you're just going to inhale just really nice and slowly, with your belly rising on the inhale. And when you're doing that, what you're looking for is some lateral movement, some east and west movement from your diaphragm. When we're doing deep diaphragmatic breathing, a lot of people don't have a lot of movement here. So it's really important to feel that, to see if there's any movement when you are inhaling. And if you haven't, what I'd like you to do is really focus on breathing into your hands now on just the inhale. So just really nice, slow, deep inhaling and exhaling. You don't have to have any counts on it. We'll just do a little bit of breath awareness. Just sort of feeling into your rib cage, seeing if your diaphragm moves. And it's really important as well to see if your belly is rising on your inhale. I think, again, a lot of us, we wear, you know, clothing that can be too tight, you know, around our bellies or our underwear. A lot of young girls, I noticed it with my daughter actually, a couple of years ago, she started inhaling and sucking her tummy in, which is called reverse breathing. And I think a lot of young girls and also ladies as well, you know, I had a client who was a dancer, and she said at all times her teacher told her to suck her belly in. Which when you think about, you know, your diaphragm's coming down on the inhale and you're sucking your belly in, everything just gets a bit squished up. You know, it's the opposite of how we're supposed to breathe. But I think, you know, a lot of people have get into bad habits like that. So it's really great to focus now on breathing into your hands, seeing if your diaphragm is actually activated, and then that your belly is coming out and your belly is rising on your inhale. So just a little bit of breath awareness now, just seeing if that is what is happening for you. And also just checking in with yourself to see if you've got any movement in your chest. A lot of people use their shoulder muscles to breathe. That's a really common kind of dysfunction as well. Also, people sitting at desks, they kind of lean over a lot, and that squishes the diaphragm, and the diaphragm can be quite weak. A lot of us breathe in quite a shallow way. Up into our chest, especially in kind of stressful environment. And, you know, when we do feel stressed, we do automatically go into up here, short, shallow breathing. It's kind of like a jugular response as well. We like, it's like going back to then, we're like, oh, just protect. We just want to really relax our shoulders. And if you do feel like you are using them, just put them up to your ears and then relax and then see how it feels. And now just do that breathing again, just really just observing your breath. Seeing if you've got any movement in the belly, in the chest, and in the rib cage. And I love doing a bit of breath awareness, because I think for a lot of people, that's all you need to do to start with. Because when you do that to start with, you're like, oh, actually, my belly isn't rising on my inhale. And then that's a great place to start. And that's what I'd say to anybody watching. If your belly isn't rising when you're inhaling, you could just focus on doing that. Focus on sending your breath into the belly. And you'll just find it actually just really calming and really relaxing, you know, without having to do any counts. Now, the counts can be really important, by the way, especially for kind of stress and anxiety, because it makes your brain switch off from the thing that you're thinking and worrying about to the counts. So it does have, you know, its bonuses doing those counts. But if you aren't feeling stressed and you just want to see what your breath is like, you don't have to do the counts. You can just have your hand and just place them on your chest, place them on your belly, you know, and place them in different positions just to see where you can feel where your breath lies. And if you find you're really up in your chest, you might find, you know, that's definitely something you could work on in reducing the belly and reducing the breath down into the belly. And
pushing on your hands, that was really powerful when I tried to do that. I really focused on trying to do that. Just kind of getting so your diaphragm sort of open, I suppose.
Exactly, and it's 360 as well. You know, we talk a lot about diaphragmatic breathing and belly breathing, but really, you know, if you look for a breath guru, look at a baby, look at an animal, and you'll just see, you know, this rise in the belly followed by a lovely rise in the chest, and then, you know, there's this free flowing. You know, we often throughout the day we hold our breath, especially with stress. You know, we get a text or an email or something, and then we're like, hold a breath, and then we're like, oh yes, I'm holding my breath, and you relax.
It wasn't so bad.
Exactly.
Gosh, the time is flying. Goodness. I had another question about the Wim Hof breathing and the benefits of doing that. Could you just explain what that is and give your opinion
of course,
as to it?
First, I'd like to say I love all breath work. So, you know, even Wim Hof, he is you know, they're even making a film on Wim Hof at the moment. They've just been in Hollywood film, so he's bringing, you know, breath work to everybody, and he has just, you know, spread the word of breath work, you know, really far and wide, which, you know, in the breathwork community is just amazing. The type of breath work he does is called Tumo breath or breath of fire, and actually you can you can change your body temperature with this breath. It dates back to, you know, Tibetan monks, actually, this type of breath, and they used to sit on mountains and literally just warm themselves by doing Tumo breath, breath of fire. It's a really activating breath. I would say that unless you're doing it with a practitioner to start with, that you maybe shouldn't, because it is quite an activating breath. So I think it'd be really good if someone wanted to access this, to do it with a practitioner for the first time. I think it's another type of breath work that if you've never done breath work, you should possibly, you know, build up to, because there's a lot of breath apneas involved, and it's a really deep inhale, really deep exhale, quite quickly. They do it about 20 or 30 times, and then there's a breath hold, and then you go again, and you do quite a few rounds. So it's quite activating. I've done it. I think it's fantastic. I really enjoy doing it, but I definitely would recommend doing with a practitioner to start with. He also combines it with cold water therapy and like a really strong kind of mindset. And just speaking from personal experience, I started cold water swimming last November, of all times. I was like, go in when it's the most cold. And I was terrified and I screamed. But anyway, it was amazing, and the health benefits. It's been on my radar for a few years, because obviously I do, I am interested in all breath work, of course, and Wim Hof being with, and I knew it's something that I really wanted to access and see how it did for me. I have some autoimmune conditions that I manage through the breath, and I knew that cold water swimming would probably help me as well, and it definitely has. And for me, it's like a tool, for my tool to use. But I think just to say that there's, there has been a few people that have done kind of Wim Hof and have gone into ice cold seas like he has, and there's been some other outcomes. So I think he's got a bit of press because of that, which hasn't been so great. But I think if you're really, really careful, and it's not that you do that breath work in the cold water, by the way, it's separate. And it is incredible, but just with care. I think I would say,
just with care.
With Wim Hof.
So it sounds like that's for someone who's quite advanced, and I've had a couple of comments like yay for cold water swimming, but also how tricky the breath work can be. So for beginners, you've given us two really lovely practices to use to de-stress before you eat, or to de-stress during the night, and then something just to kind of bring you down a little for peak performance at work. I've mentioned your Friday night Boogie and Breathe, which is fab and smiley and joyous. So that's another way to access some breath work. But for people who want to know more, perhaps join one of your workshops, could you just tell us a little bit about that before we wrap up?
Yes, of course. And just want to say actually about my Friday night live, because I have had a few messages going, oh, is that normal? Is that what you always do? Because it is a bit of joy, and and that's how I started. I started it in COVID, in lockdown, and I just wanted to bring a bit of joy to breath work, because you get a lot of people going, oh, it sounds boring, I don't have time for that. It was just like, actually, you know what, I love a banging tune, and I'd like to have a little shake it off, and then, which is actually, there's loads of science behind actually movement before breath work, which I probably haven't got time to go into now, but there is a lot of science, which is why I do a shake it off.
Circulation pumping, presumably.
It is, and hormones and stuff. And in fact, if you look to the animal world as well, just really quickly, like when an animal goes through a trauma, like they get attacked by another animal or whatever it goes through, when that's over, if they survived, they shake. You'll see an animal shake, and they're shaking off that situation that's happened to them,
shaking out the adrenaline,
exactly, and then they're like, oh, everything's fine, whereas us, we then hold on to that, we don't
for as long as possible,
and we suppress, so there's a lot of science behind that shaking. So just to say that, and then just a few minutes breath work just to bring a bit of joy to the breath. But so, and then I do a monthly online workshop where I do the breath work that I talked about, that I'm really passionate about, which is called conscious connected breathing, and it just really gets you out of your head, really into your body, into your heart space, and it really actually changes your brain waves, you know, actually speaking as well. So it just can really switch you off. And I love it. I absolutely love it. And I do an online one just once a month. And yeah, it's really, really special. And yeah, and I keep the groups nice and small so I have plenty of time to look at you. Because again, I accessed lots of that myself throughout COVID and lockdown. And I found that, you know, some groups, they were just so big, and I was thinking, how can everyone, you know, be checking on everyone? So that for me was really important to have a small group so that I could be really focused and still be able to see everybody as much as I can, and, you know, and speak to each person individually. So
yeah, and that's what I did with you. I did the conscious connected breathing workshop, and I was super stressed and had about a million gazillion things going on that day, and yet I still managed to access the class and to do exactly what you wanted me to do, and to disconnect. It was a really lovely way of disconnecting and just going somewhere else, even though I was still in my house. All the stresses and strains were still going on around me, but I found it to be a really powerful tool. So there are lots of different ways and lots of different entry points, and I suppose you can start from the 4-6 and then sort of work your way through, and take from it what you need.
And it varies, you know, when people come to me, it's such a variety of different reasons, you know, and we'll put into place, you know, a plan for whatever your kind of health goals are. You know, it can be very specific or just come for a switch off, you know. And I've just started doing, you know, face to face again after such a long time. You know, it's lovely. It's so nice to see people again. But you know, the whole world of online had changed my business entirely. You know, pre-COVID, I didn't see anybody online, and now suddenly I have workshops. You know, I've got clients in South Africa, Australia, which is just blows my mind. Actually, it really does. But it's so exciting to be able to share breathwork, you know, far and wide. So yeah, it's just amazing.
And it does work really well online. I mean, we'd never have thought that, would we? Sort of, you know, a couple of years ago, but phenomenally it does. And particularly if you're a bit self-conscious. Yes. It's perfect.
Yeah, it is.
And then you can get into it, and you don't know anybody else is there anyway.
Exactly. And it was really varying to start with, because I had, you know, clients saying, oh, you know, the kids were banging on the door, and they, you know, they couldn't get into it as much as when they were coming to see me face to face. But then I had plenty of people, like you've just said, that were like, it was amazing. I was at home, so I could really get into it and not feel self-conscious, you know, because it was a camera, and really let go and really relax. So for me, that was just amazing.
Well, thank you so much. I've had a comment that you are wonderful, which you are. And that's been so helpful. And I know I sort of highly recommend the Friday night boogie, and then hopefully lots of people join your workshops too. That's been really brilliant and useful. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure. Take care. Thanks everybody for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye everyone.
Bye bye.